Thank you very much. So today I will talk about how we work in my lab. I'm not going to talk about high-performance computing. I'm going to talk about how we work in my research lab, in my research team, working with applications in drug discovery. My name is Spjuth. I'm associate professor at Uppsala University. And really our key objective is to sort of make a transition from today's process, where we largely work with humans making decisions, and to a too large extent, when we come later in drug discovery, use animal experiments. So we'd like to accelerate drug discovery with the use of intelligent tools, and try to, instead of making experiments, try to predict outcomes. So the traditional hypothesis testing, and this has nothing to do really with life science or anything, is that humans usually have a hypothesis. You conduct a set of experiments. If you have access to robotized equipment, you can do that. And then you do some manual analysis, some manual interpretation. And in many cases, you need to do more experiments. Maybe you need to revise your hypothesis. And in the end, after doing this a few rounds, you might end up with some insights. Oh, I think, yeah, here it is. So predictive modeling is a little bit different. It's a two-stage process. In many cases, you start to generate data. If the aim is to build up a database, usually you have this automated, and you build up a database. And then when it comes to the modeling prediction, you have a human usually doing manual queries, getting some responses, training a model, and making a prediction. So you see, it's sort of decoupled. It's more tailored toward retrospective analysis. You hope that the data that you generate is predictive. It's kind of expensive. You probably generate more data than you should have. You store wrong data. And it's also, to some extent, limited for hypothesis testing. So we talk a lot about data-driven science. I've worked in this field for a long time. And so what you want to do is really get from data, train your models, and get to some sort of prediction. That's sort of, it should be driven by data. But integrating data is, as many of us know, it's not an easy problem. There's a lot of hurdles to do that. And if you train your models and you come up, oh, I don't have enough accuracy. I would like to have better models. What do? Integrate more data? Of course, the best solution would be to generate new data. But if the processes are decoupled, this is not an easy thing to do. But of course, we'd like to use this for hypothesis testing, but also for hypothesis generation. So in my team, we really would like to take the step towards intelligent experimentation, and having experiments producing data, so that we have, instead of having a decoupled process where the human sits between, we have this continuous analytics process. So as a scientist, I get delivered results. And in itself, the system should design the experiments. If we can sort of couple this, we will be able to automate and instead having the machines do the important decisions and deliver results. Some of the things we do is, for example, what are experiments should we do? How should they be done? Can we reduce the search space? Can we store only the interesting data? I don't want to spend a lot of storage on storing the wrong data. And in the end, I would like to replace the experiments with predictions. But I need enough confidence that I can trust my models to do that. And the rest of this talk will sort of mention a little bit, because this is the data engineering track. We'll talk about the informatics system that we have spent a few years building to sustain this in my lab. But first, I'm going to say a few words of what we do on very high overview. So we work large-scale experiments. We have cells that we expose to something, for example, a drug, a chemical, and we can do this on big plates. We can do 384 experiments in one plate, and we can have stacks of 50 of these plates. So we do a lot of experiments in parallel. We, as a major readout, we have microscopes, high-content microscopes that take pictures, images out of these cells, and they will look different depending on the treatment. We can extract our features and do some hypothesis generation. And of course, since deep learning works really well with images, we reside on convolutional neural networks a lot. And in the end, we can make predictions. And we want to make prediction. This compound that I did, does it have an acceptable safety profile? Can I identify some problems already now without going further in the process so that I can dig deeper in that? So this is one of our labs set up where we have an automated lab and we can do experiments. And it's not so sophisticated. We have a rack next to it. We have a few hardware servers on-prem, a CPU, a GPU, and a few of them. But we're connecting, of course, more open source robotized components to this. So this is our quest also to expand, be able to expand this with the components we need to generate more data. It should be plug and playable, but the information system must be scalable so that we're not limited by it. So as an overview, we have a robotized lab where we produce images and we can calculate features. We store these in databases. We'd like to have access to adequate infrastructure, CPUs, GPUs, connect to HPC, connect to cloud. We can train our models. We'd like to have the scientists have an easy view, easy way of interacting, getting the data, doing these results. We'd like to publish some things for external users, services, data, predictive models. And ultimately, and I should also say that we are not really doing this right now. We are at the early stage. But I really would like our models to sort of interact and design and drive what experiments are done. We're removing all the technical barriers to this first. So it's sort of at the brink, and I'm really looking forward to this year, putting this really in practice, where we control the robotics. This is one experiment. We have for next generation drug delivery. When you have biological drugs, a major problem is to deliver them to the right cells. So you try to have some sort of vessel to ship them around. And we can track this over time. The red are the vessels, and when they're taking up by the cell, delivering the payload, now in this case, they express a green color. And we can track this over time. So these are 6 of these cells, as I said, on 384 plates. And we can look at over time, these are the particles circulating, and some of these cells actually take up. This was a good drug delivery. It delivered the payload. This was a 24-hour experiment condensed to a few seconds. But as you understand, we do this in parallel for many experiments. So we have quite a large data. We have high volume, high velocity. We need to continuously process this data. We need to continuously train our models, and we also need to continuously serve our models. So what we've done, we've embraced virtual infrastructures and containers to do this. And in principle, we have our a Kubernetes cluster where we take care of this stream of images using containers. And of course, having this in a container orchestration enables us to scale this up. Now, my scientists, my data scientists, they want to run Spark, they want to run TensorFlow, and sometimes we don't have enough on-prem resources, so we need to build a hybrid infrastructure to do this. We need to be able to connect this system out. So how did we do that? First of all, I should say we have 2 main orchestration clusters. We run Kubernetes, and we run an OpenShift, partly by tradition, because at the time, we really liked the CI/CD of OpenShift over the years. So we have it spans different servers so that we get some sort of high availability. And especially for the external users where we serve APIs for other scientists in the world, they work with our OpenShift instance. Kubernetes, we administer it with Rancher. It spans also over to our GPU server. This is where we connect external infrastructure because this is where we need our processing power. We have a few hundred terabytes as a file server that we use, and so far this has been enough. Why did we have this? So OpenShift is a little bit more, it takes a bit more effort to maintain for us, to upgrade. Kubernetes works with the latest stuff. So this system, this Kubernetes cluster, it's more used in development. We can upgrade it easily, and since we don't rely on for the external services here, we can take it down a little bit if we schedule it. So this has been a successful decision that sort of grew in our group. We have to, and then of course there is communication between these clusters. The external services use the internal. How do we do this? With our configuration, well, it's all infrastructure as code. We use a set of tools. We started developing in 2014. Ranger didn't exist. So we've developed this cube now. We're moving more into Ranger for managing our Kubernetes clusters right now. We like it a lot. We use Terraform to set up the virtual infrastructure. It's all virtual on our servers. We use Helm to sort of, and Ansible also to deploy the services. This is all makes it all very testable. I say we recently switched to using this Rancher for Kubernetes cluster management. We're really happy about it. It's sort of, we developed our own system. We liked it. It was kind of hard to switch. It's just that it's very nice that someone else takes care of matching these versions of all these state-of-the-art tools in there. So we've actually transitioned a bit to it. We're still using our old system for setting up our virtual infrastructure, but for Kubernetes cluster management, this works very well for us. And a key part is the CI/CD system that we built up. So we have all our configs, all the infrastructure, the services, the configurations, all on GitHub. We actually have two CI/CD system because Red Hat OpenShift for these services it contains some of them. So it's very straightforward for us to have this source to image. You never see a container. You connect it to your application and it's deployed automatically. But some of the parts that we do, we use Travis and push things to Docker Hub, especially for the internal stuff, the machine learning, the deep learning, the TensorFlow parts. Those we are running with Travis. And I sort of worked a lot more in machine learning and AI than before because it's been a bit technical now on the cluster setup. But it's all to me it's all about problem solving. We really need to connect the data that we produce so that they are useful in the end, and useful for me means predictive models, so I can predict and make decisions based on my experiments, and I've worked to some extent with pharmaceutical industry, and that's also to support more decisions. What should we do with this drug lead, for example. So we have to cover all from the training data to the model export, and we're using a variety of components and tools and frameworks to do this, Kubeflow, Pachyderm, and Seldon, and it should run on different type of infrastructure, virtual, on-prem, on cloud, and because some of these things are important. First, when you start building things, it's kind of easy for everybody to just follow a tutorial online or download TensorFlow, take some images, and it's not rocket science. There's a lot of tutorials. Taking these things, putting it in production so that it continuously runs in a resilient system, that's a bigger challenge. And you really come up. You want versioning and governance so that you can trace. Why did I make this decision at this time at this point in time? Something was wrong. So this idea of Devops for machine learning is something that we've sort of grew out of a need from us, and we worked on trying to formulate and formalize this into sort of a pipeline that, as a data scientist, you should be allowed to do. You need to do exploration, but when you've done something, it needs to be able to quite seamlessly be put in production, and that is, I think, what fits this data engineering track very well today. So having this continuous integration and continuous delivery to the model serving on different infrastructure is very important. And I recently joined the company Scale Out Systems, where we are also contributing and working with trying to get these ideas well. Having proper logging and monitoring, echoing the previous talk on Elastic, extremely important. Things will go wrong. Things will not behave as you like. Some things, they require more memory than I need. Why? And trying to sort of find and identify problems in this has been how should I say, in many cases this has been very hard, and it's taken a lot of time for us. But I'm kind of happy with the system we've set up right now. This is just a front showing a little bit the usage of our different clusters. It's not used so much right now, but having a logging and monitoring profiling system, I cannot sort of emphasize how important that has been for us. I'm not going to say much about this, but I wanted to advertise. This is a research project funded by the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Research, and it's really about instruments generating a lot of data. How can we deal with that? Because we can't store it all. So we need to, in real time, make decisions. Is this interesting? And that's a hard problem, because the most probable solution is no, it's not interesting. But how can we tell? And we don't want to throw it away in the rubbish bin. So it's a large project that we work with together with different partners and and different industry trying to do this. I'll recommend to look at this if you're interested in this. In science, FAIR is very much debated. It's the idea that data and services should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducible. And we address this in various ways. I don't have time to go into the detail. Please come and talk to me later if you want. For example, we are semantically annotating our services with JSON LD. They are accessible. We always publish our services using an open API. I want every analysis done in my lab. So it should be reproducible. I would like to sort of, when we submit scientific manuscript, present our research for the world. I really would like to be able. I don't want to be in the position where someone says I can't reproduce that, and there have been sort of a lot of research that has been identified it could not be reproduced. So the services we do, they are portable. Containers contribute a lot to that. Resilient due to Kubernetes, and we can scale with these resources as well. So these are two examples. They are not about images. I can't really show it. I think these are easier to show. That we. Oh, I should have. Let's see if it's still connected with my network. No, it's probably not. Let's not do it. But we offer these. We offer these services. Never do that. Never do live demo. Now it's behind, and I see the right thing here. Here we're back. Never do a live demo. But offering these services for chemical structures that all of these are AI models. They run as microservices on our on-prem solutions, and they give scientists all over the world insight into the safety profile of these drug leads. So I showed you this as an overview of what we wanted to build, all of these components are what I would like to see. I think we've made excellent progress in all of these areas. It's taken a lot of effort, and again stressing the tradition in science is really that you have a single scientist sitting, getting data, a lot of manual stuff, training, then you go to some sort of education and you learn how to train an AI model, and then you asked me 2 years ago, I would say machine learning. Now I'm saying AI. And then it's sort of, you use it and you do some result, and it's a one-off thing. It's a one-off thing. Like 99% of the times it's a one-off thing. And that's not really useful in the longer run. The model is just used to produce a piece of paper, a PDF. And obviously, if we do this properly, we can take the next step in science that these models are also useful and can be reused, and the data can be, the results can be reproducible. So, some key component and takeaways. Infrastructure as code. For us, that we don't have access to sysadmins, this has been extremely important. We can test our infrastructure. Containers makes our components portable and scalable. And Kubernetes offers us resilience. With logging and monitoring is important for us. Hybrid cloud gives us the elasticity. Pachyderm, if you've never heard about it, it's a workflow system for Kubernetes. It's a company in Silicon Valley that we worked with and developed also part of this. And the CI/CD is of course important. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. How else would I be able to, when data updates, get a new model? Open source, everything we build on is open source, but putting it all together, getting it to work, profiling it, and standing it has taken quite a lot of time. So the implications for our lab of having these continuous analytics, we can handle the continuous data processing from our instruments in robust and resilient pipelines. We can continuously retrain our models as data is updated, and we can continuously publish data and models for the world and for our internal users. And I think that this provides me, I mean, I have an agile research group of very different competencies. So some of the people that are non-technical, they have access to the infrastructure they need. And we don't have any clear roles. We don't have sysadmins. We don't have tool developers. We don't have data engineers. It's more blends into this DevOps role, but that's the way how we do it. I'm over time. These are two of the tools we use. I'm not going to go into that, but instead, thank you very much for listening. Looking forward to questions.